Welcome to Badger Talks Quick Picks, which brings exciting happenings, resources, and talent from your UW flagship campus to the people of Wisconsin and beyond, demonstrating the power of the Wisconsin idea, one connection at a time.
Thank you all for joining us today for this Quick Pick Badger Talk. And my name is Tony Chambers. And today I'll be sharing some thoughts about love in particular, and specifically how belonging is considered a practice of love. I want to jump right in because we only have a small amount of time to get through quite a bit of stuff here. So let me just say, jump right in and say, these are the takeaways. When I do talks, I like to tell people what it is that I'm going to tell them. So if you fall asleep anywhere in between now and the end of the presentation, you'll know what it is that we covered. First of all, love is the ultimate experience of belonging. Fear is one of the main barriers to belonging, as well as one of the main barriers to love. Love and belonging are considered practices and processes. They're not end games necessarily. And belonging impacts well-being psychologically, emotionally, physically, and socially. And belonging and fitting in are not the same. Belonging is bringing your whole self and being your whole self in whatever situation, and fitting in is retrofitting yourself in order to be accepted by others. Experiencing belonging is not the same as a sense of belonging, and we'll get into that a little bit. Important learning that I had: that to which you want to belong must want you to belong to it. Belonging, much like love, is a reciprocal experience. In the southern part of Africa, the Zulu people have a greeting when they meet someone new. They say, "Sawubonga," and that means "I see you." And the response from those that are given this greeting is "Sahona," which is "I am here to be seen." And that applies, both of these apply both to the concept of belonging and love. And finally, and this is most relevant in the times we live in right now, belonging is at the heart or at the center of all human conflicts, as well as all human joy. So that's what we're talking about today. Let's get on with it. I work at the Center for Healthy Minds, and we host an undergraduate course and sponsor and support an undergraduate course called The Art and Science of Human Flourishing. And we have all of these dimensions that we cover that are relevant to a flourishing life. And the one we're going to talk about today is belonging, which is in what we call our connection module. Abraham Maslow, which many of us are aware of, identified different levels of needs that all human beings have in order to move toward a sense of wholeness or self-actualization. At the center of this hierarchy is this need for love and for belonging. So Maslow noted this many, many years ago, that love and belonging are essential in order for us to progress, and what we like to say, in order for us to flourish to our full self as human beings. We know from the work that's being done at the Center for Healthy Minds, as well as across the globe, that there's some consequences to what we consider to be some of the opposites or not belonging, that is isolation or loneliness. And we'll talk about what our Surgeon General Vivek Murthy has said about this epidemic of loneliness in a short while. Now, what happens when someone experiences isolation or loneliness or this lack of belonging? It can cause certain kind of cravings that are quite similar and are as strong as this experience of hunger or thirst. Your body actually responds to this not belonging or this sense of isolation and loneliness in similar ways. So it could be kind of confused when you experience it in your body. It may also create more pessimism. We tend not to be very positive in our outlook in terms of what's going on around us. It makes us less trusting of others. And, we see quite a bit of that in today's world with increased polarization, increased senses of not connecting to one another around critical issues. So we have this heightened sense of distrust amongst others, for others. It may contribute to cognitive difficulties. We tend to forget things quicker. We tend not to be able to retrieve simple constructs and information. We tend to lose words. It kind of resembles what some people call dementia, but it's not. It's just a reaction to this sense of loneliness and isolation and not belonging. It can impact us physically. We tend to get sicker more. We tend to have more headaches. We tend to get colds and other kind of ailments at a higher rate. We tend to be more depressed and have more anxiety. Vivek Murthy, our Surgeon General of the United States, issued a report in 2023 that outlined many of the reactions to this sense of loneliness, or what he calls this epidemic of loneliness and isolation. And what he noted was that the populations that are at higher risk of experiencing this epidemic of loneliness, or what I like to think of this epidemic of not having experience of belonging, are seniors, and the second largest population are college-age students. And I would argue that it's also experienced to a higher degree or high degree amongst those who are pre-collegiate, some of our early teens. And some people think that it has something to do with technology. Some people think it has a lot to do with the amount of information that's available and young people are exposed to. It also has something to do with, well, the pandemic, obviously, but it has something to do with how adults are experiencing the experience of not belonging or loneliness or isolation, and it just transitions into the life of young people. So, what is belonging? Now, kind of like love, it's a hard thing to describe, but what I like to do is just share some of the dimensions of belonging, which also apply in some cases to the concept of love. Now, when we think of belonging, we immediately think of this subjective experience. It's a feeling. You know, we have a sense of belonging. We have a feeling of a belonging. We have an emotion that's elicited when we are experiencing belonging. It is that, but it's not only that. There are some other dimensions that are as critical when we talk about creating an experience of belonging. There's this objective component to the experience of belonging, much like love. When I say objective, in addition to having a feeling of belonging or an emotion about belonging and love, there needs to be policies, practices, resources, different kind of dynamics in place that some people would call hard, as opposed to the emotional soft, in place in order for there to be a complete experience of belonging. And I would argue a complete experience of love as well. So the strengths of these networks, and we all have these networks. Now, when I say the strength of social networks, what I'm essentially saying is that the degree of belonging in any kind of environment is associated with, or maybe even depends on, the strengths of these connections we have with other people and the value of those connections to us in getting to our ultimate self, our self-actualization, or our sense of flourishing. So, in order for us to have belonging, we have to have these really strong social networks. Now, some of the conditions that are important in the strengths of social networks is how frequent do we come in contact with certain people? That is, do we see them once a day, twice a day, once a month, once a year? The quality of those connections, are they rich, or do they feel close? Do they feel like they're positive on a whole? Do they feel like they're negative or neutral? And then there's this thing called alignment. If I believe that you are a strong member of my social network, it's important that you also feel like I'm a part of your social network, an important part of your social network. So there has to be some alignment. I consider you my friend. Do you consider me your friend? And that's where alignment comes in. So let me test this out on you. What this diagram what this is suggesting is that the stronger your social networks, that's the lower axis, the stronger your social network, the greater your sense of belonging. Okay? It's like that. So for those who just have relationships or have relationships where the social network is low, a person in your social network is low, then you have a lesser sense of belonging in whatever environment. If you have a social network where folks are high in their strength in your social network, you have this greater sense of belonging. This is important because when we construct environments where people have an experience of belonging, it's not enough just to connect people to people. It's important that we're intentional about connecting people in situations where they have, in their social network, they have high strength among those that they're in contact with, where they can actually make decisions and provide the kind of supports necessary for people to achieve their fullest self. Now, what do we do? What can we do to promise a greater sense of belonging? And these are from Vivek Murthy, in some cases, in his report. We need to understand the power of social networks. We can't dismiss community. We can't dismiss the value of community or the value of relationships. We need to invest time in nurturing our relationships, which is one of the strongest indicators of a sense of belonging or an experience of belonging, because belonging and love are relational. We need to minimize any distractions when we're engaging with other people. And it's easy to do that, particularly around in the life of technology. Seek out opportunities to serve and support others, whether on an individual level or a collective level. We need to be intentional about these. Be responsive, supportive, and practice gratitude. I couldn't say that stronger. Gratitude is one of the critical elements of experiencing a life of belonging, and perhaps even more so, experiencing love. Actively engage with people from different backgrounds and experiences, critical in the world we live in today. Participate in social and community groups, and reduce practices that lead to feelings of disconnection from others. Isolation or self-isolation does not get us to an experience of belonging, does not get us to the elimination of loneliness or isolation. Seek help during times of struggle, which all of us experience, and it's important that we're intentional and proactive about seeking that kind of help. Be open to your healthcare providers, that is both physical, mental, and emotional healthcare providers, and they don't necessarily have to have a professional title. There are healthcare providers that sometimes we consider friends, teachers, loved ones, but be open and reflect the core values of connection and how we approach others. Thank you, I'm sorry, please are critical in expressing those core values. What I'd like to leave you all with today is just, some reflection, is that every part of our life is impacted by experiencing belonging and experiencing love. Every part, that is receiving as well as giving love, and creating space for others to have experience of belonging, and being intentional about seeking our sense of belonging. And in order to experience a flourishing life, individually and collectively, it's essential that we have a unique and genuine experience of both. That is, experiencing love and experiencing belonging. So with that, I want to wish you all the best in your quest for both of those. And I look forward to further engagement on any of these topics that anybody wishes to explore further. Thank you.